ndị Enuani, ụmụnne m ndị Ụkwụani, ụmụnne m ndị Ikwere, ụmụnne m ndị Echie, ụmụnne m ndị Ọgba, ụmụnne m ndị Ndọni, ụmụnne m ndị Egbema, ụmụnne m ndị Ọkaigwe, ụmụnne m ndị Nsụka, ụmụnne m ndị Afikpo, ụmụnne m ndị Ezi, ụmụnne m ndị Ezza, ụmụnne m ndị ụbọlụ niile nọ n'ụwa niile. Eji m oge na-ekene ụnụ na-anabata ụnụ n'ụlọ anyị bụ Enuani Cultural Forum. I am so pleased to have you on board on this one and only platform that promotes Igbo unity, on this platform that projects Igbo glory, Igbo greatness, a platform that promotes the rich cultural heritage of Ndi Igbo, a platform that glorifies Asusu Igbo. I welcome you to this very wonderful platform. And I thank you for being a part of this very noble platform, because without you, I don't think we will have anyone to talk to. I don't think without you we'll be here. We will not be here without you. So thank you for being a part of this very phenomenal journey. Daloni. Today we are looking at this very all-important question. It's a question that usually pops up on the lips of people all over the world. Are Ndi Igbo the most resilient ethnic group in the world? In every country you go to, you will definitely find one ethnic group that shows this resilience. No matter how the people try to subdue them, no matter the gang up against them, they still somehow manage to excel. You will find them in every country. In Nigeria, it is unquestionably the Igbo. In Kenya, it is certainly the Luo. In Ghana, it is certainly the Akans. In South Africa, it is certainly the Zulus. In Uganda, it is certainly the Hutus. I think that's Rwanda. So, in every country in Africa, there's always this particular ethnic group that thrives, irrespective of the surrounding challenges, irrespective of the environmental factors that tend to limit people. Those groups usually tend to be unlimited by environmental factors. So, today we are looking at Ndi Igbo as a case study. The Igbo people, irrespective of the way the government of Nigeria planned its cartography, not even the government of Nigeria, Africa was shared during a Berlin conference that held in Germany that had no one African person sitting down, not even one single African person sitting with them. The balkanized Africa decided, where will this boundary stop? If it stops here, who takes where? They shared the world. They shared Africa. So in this sharing, they divided places that are supposed to be one nation into another nation. That is why you will have Ndi Igbo spread across different states in one federation, spread across different regions, such that some people now begin to have identity crisis. Are we here? Do we belong here? Do we not belong here? Some people who belong in a place where their neighbors are Igbo feel they are the main Igbo. Those who have their neighbors as other tribes begin to ask themselves, am I really Igbo, or am I different from my brothers in the homeland? All this happened because of cultural interaction and then cartography. Cartography in the sense that government decides this is Bayelsa State and the boundary starts from here, ends there. Whether you are an Ndoki person in Bayelsa, you speak Igbo or a version of Igbo language, you are in Bayelsa State. And if you are not well grounded enough culturally, you will begin to lose your Igbo-ness and begin to tilt towards calling yourself an Ijo person. This has happened in so many places. We have seen instances of places that were once under the influence of Benin Kingdom. Places like Ibanke, places like the Ika communities, Owa, above all these areas close to Benin, under the influence of the Benin Empire. The people who migrated away from them during these periods, their descendants, their children now regard themselves as Benin people, despite the fact that the names of their ancestors were unmistakably Igbo. Their cultural practices are still Igbo. Their market days, their phantoms, their portmanteau, everything about them, any word at all you want to study. If you want to study the etymology of any word in their diction, it tilts you back to Igbo. Most of these people bear names like Okafor, Okeke, Okonkwo, and they still say they are not Igbo. Because their ancestors migrated from a place that was once under the influence of Benin Kingdom. And then they will tell you about homage, which is what some people even still say till today. Even kings who are educated are posing symptoms of identity crisis, proudly exhibiting symptoms of identity crisis. A king says, my ancestors used to pay homage to Benin Kingdom, therefore I am a Benin man. Failing to understand what homage is. Homage system, or the fact that you pay homage, does not mean you are from a certain place. The fact that your ancestors paid homage made them even less. You are trying to say that your ancestors were kind of slaves to these other people and they were superior. Hence, your ancestors were paying homage to them. They were not allies. They were subordinates to this particular big kingdom. Even Nigeria at some point were paying homage to the Queen of England. Now that we have gotten our independence, it is no longer morally right for us to go there and pay homage. It is now discretional. I'm using this as an instance to advise those whose kingdoms are no longer under the influence of any Benin kingdom, yet they claim they are Benin people. It is a mentality of slavery. It is a mentality that has still failed to change or evolve, even if times have evolved. Your kingdoms are no longer paying homage to Benin kingdom, but yet you consider yourself a Benin person. The people we are talking about, so some of them bear complete ancestral Igbo names. They speak a version of the Igbo language, yet they will boldly and proudly tell you they are not Igbo. And on what basis are they not Igbo? They will say, because my ancestors did not migrate anywhere from the Igbo homeland, which is the states in the southeast. State creation started maybe around 1967 as part of efforts by General Yakubu Gowon. Efforts of Yakubu Gowon to reduce the numerical strength, the population of the Biafra people. Regions became states. The southeast region gave birth to 3 states, which are the then Calabar state, the now River state. All these are places that came. All these are places that came from the area once known as the Eastern region. And then you have Anambra state. The headquarters of the Eastern state was now Enugu. These were efforts of General Yakubu Gowon. 3 states came from the southeast then. 1 state came from the Midwest. The Midwest region became the Midwestern state. Later became Bendel state. So we had a total of 12 states. These 12 states now began to shape identity. Places like Port Harcourt in Rivers State, that was once predominantly Igbo, is now grappling between being Igbo and being Ijo. You will now see a man in Port Harcourt boldly telling you that he is not an Igbo man. Why? He will say because he did not migrate anywhere from southeast. You will see people in Delta State who were once completely regarded and addressed as Igbo, now saying they are not Igbo. Why? They said they did not migrate from the southeast. In fact, that they migrated from Benin. The place they now refer as Benin was once occupied, is still even occupied by Proto-Igbo speaking people. This is not my word. This is a fact that you can cross-check and still find it in historical documents. Books written by Professor Elizabeth Isichei, books written by Adiele Afikpo, books written by Professor Onwejogu, Angulo Onwejogu, books written by Professor Wabara. You will find that Proto-Igbo speaking people were among the early populations of Benin. The place called Benin Empire had Igbo speaking people in it. It still has Igbo speaking people in it. In the normal Benin language, Benin diction of today, you will find no fewer than 50 to 100 Igbo words unaltered in their daily use. So if an Igbo man lived in Anidu, which is what we called Benin before Oromiyan invaded it, brought a lot of strife and war, which you will know as an Igbo man as Ayidu Noba, and the place was called a land of strife, Ile Ibinu. They will tell you that the place is not called Ile Ibinu. They will say it's Ubini. Whatever the version is, the place was a war zone at a time because the people resisted the kingship system brought in by Oromiyan. Therefore, as at that time, people ran away. People ran away because of the differences they had and because of the political influence they also had. People like Nnaye Ezechima moved. Remember, Ezechima was not even living in Anidu. He lived in Ado. Hence, the name Umu Ezechima, Ndị Ando Nidu. Even the people of Onitsha, the people of Iseluku, Obio, Ezi, Onichubo, Obompa, all the descendant communities of Ezechima still call themselves Ndi Ado Nidu because their parents lived in Ado, lived in Idu before returning homewards. For emphasis, their father Ezechima was laid eternally at Ovio, a hometown not very far from Ubuluku, is where Ezechima was finally buried. His children, the children of Oheze, his first son, who died while he was alive, proceeded towards Onocha. Onocha means to stay apart, and they established their homes around Onocha, around Mili Omambala. That is why they are called Ndi Onocha Mili, those who live by the river. Those who stay by the farm are also called Ndi Onocha Ubo. Those who stayed by the farm, Ndi Onocha Ubo, Ndi Onocha Ubo, Ndi Onocha Mili. This is how the names Onitsha came to be. These are Igbo people. Now, if these people can express their Igbo-ness, how much more if these people in Ibanke today can even express their Igbo-ness, still bearing titles like Eze, Obi, still having communities like Mbiri? How then will somebody who migrated from there in the 16th century or 17th century or even 12th century be claiming that they are not Igbo simply because they did not migrate anywhere from the southeast? The word southeast came as a region, and it came with the colonizers. It is a colonizer's word. How long are we going to continue referring ourselves by terms given to us by the colonizer? We had an identity. Our identity then was unique. I, for instance, I am Onobolo man. No matter how the government name changes and continues to change, I will still remain Nwezemobolo. Oyobolo. Oyobolo. I am from Obolo clan. I am still a descendant, a son of Ezemu, the king of Ubuluku. That is my bloodline, a princely bloodline. Whether we were in Western Nigeria, whether we were in Midwestern Nigeria, whether we were in Bendel State, whether we are now in Delta State, and whether it becomes an Yoma State tomorrow, I still remain Woyobolo, Woyibo. That is the identity. That is the cultural identity that doesn't change. So, the Igbo identity is cultural. It is not political. Political identities must be differentiated from cultural identities. I think this is the basis of the history that is supposed to be taught in schools today, so that people can lose their identity crisis. One of the biggest challenges to history today is identity crisis. If you see a young graduate today, a university graduate, and ask him, maybe because of the vacuum created by the over a decade of not teaching history, a vacuum was created. If you ask a young graduate today, what is your name? He answers you very politely and fluently. Where are you from? What is your ethnic group? He says, I am from River State. River State is not an ethnic group. What is your ethnic group? Where are you from? He says, I'm a Deltan. Are you Igbo? He says, no, I'm not Igbo. I'm a Deltan. What is the name of your community? He says, I'm from Ibuzo. You are not Igbo. You are from Ibuzo. Igbo, Uzo. You are not Igbo. So where are you from? He says, I am Deltan. Delta State is a political identity created by the colonizer. It is created by cartography, government map. And very soon, if things work out, you will no longer have the Delta State again. You will now see yourself as an Anioma person. Then your identity will have changed 5 times. Your political identity anyway, because your cultural identity, no matter how much you deny it, remains constant. Cultural identities don't change. That is why I am advocating for people to embrace their cultural identity, because it doesn't change. If you have told your daughter that she is Igbo, you will not change it until she dies. But my children now know they are Deltans, and that they are Igbo. Tomorrow I can tell them they are no longer Deltans, that they are from Anioma State. So if they ask you, where are you from? You say, I'm from Anioma. Remember myself, dear father, I have been from, I don't know, I have been from Bendel State. I have been from Delta State. Now I may be from Anioma State, which is 3 different political identities. But my cultural identity has remained one and the same. Afam Bongozi Chukwuka, Onwadenim, Oyubuluku Kembo, na Nyocha South Local Government Area of Delta State, Nigeria. That first line I gave does not change. That I am an Igbo man from Ubuluku in Delta State. And there are Igbo people as well in Edo State, in all here in our local government area. The interesting thing about these Igbo people in Edo State is that they don't have boundary with most local governments in Edo State. They have boundary with Delta State. It is because it is said that Samuel Ogbemudia, who was the then governor of Edo State, his mother is from Ibanke, this Igbo-speaking Padika community, and his father is from Benin. He wanted to make sure that his father's place and his mother's place are in the same state. Therefore, he ensured that Ibanke becomes part of Edo State. That particular mistake is about to be corrected. That particular mistake will be corrected by boundary adjustments that will accompany the creation of Anioma State. So, why and what makes Ndi Igbo very resilient is what we are looking at today. Then I had to discuss a little bit about their identity. You see, cultural identity, it is very, very important. It is not something that can be overflowed. It is not even something that can be ignored. Cultural identity defines you as a person, who you are and what you are. It is your genetic makeup. It is by your cultural identity that it is determined how far you can go or how low you can even go. How determined you are as a person. No single Igbo person that has Igbo blood unadulterated is subservient. Remember, the mantra of Ndi Igbo is give me freedom or give me death, and I will accept both in open arms or with open arms. Ndi Igbo are people known for their resilience, for their self-determination, for their strong will, for their industry, and most importantly, for their ingenuity. An Igbo man is a genius. Few days ago, we have been discussing 3 Igbo people who picked up Grammy Awards in one night in 3 different categories that are not even related to us. Imagine an Igbo man winning Grammy Award for country music, winning it ahead of Americans. Imagine an Igbo man winning an award for visual creativity, that is Tyler Okoma. Then imagine an Igbo woman again winning an award for her stage performance of a song. These are the people that own all this. They are not our traditional areas. But her performance on stage gave her a Grammy, her second. For Tyler Okoma, his third. Then for Chibueze, his first. The resilience of Ndi Igbo comes in their identity as an Igbo person. An Igbo person who carries Igbo blood unadulterated can never lower the bar. Remember, over 900 years ago, close to 1,000 years ago, our ancestors were already smelting iron, making artworks. I've looked at history books because people were sending me messages. As a well-respected intellectual platform, that we should discuss the exclusion of Igbo history in Nigeria's secondary school curriculum. I am a very thorough person. And most importantly, I left secondary school over 20 years ago. I have removed my eyes from secondary school. And even while I was in secondary school, I was a science student. In the university, I was also a science student. I had no business going back to secondary school stuffs. Art, for that matter. That I look at art is based on my passion and interest, not because it is what I studied in school. So I decided to look into the matter. I went and started searching for books. I went from one bookshop to another. I was looking for the book called Living History, because that is the book they were circulating, that the Nigerian government is using to teach, and that it doesn't have Igbo history in it. I couldn't find the book. Why? I asked them, why is the book not available? Is this not the book they are using in school? They said no. That is not the book recommended for our secondary schools. Matter of fact, that the book recommended for secondary schools is Spectrum. They went and looked for the book and they gave it to me. They said, the books are very expensive. I said, no problem, I would like to buy them. How much is it? They told me. He said, which class do I want to buy? I said, I want for junior secondary. They said, there's none for junior secondary. That you have to buy for JSS 1, JSS 2, JSS 3. That is junior secondary. Then if you want to buy for senior secondary, SS1, SS2, SS3. And these books are quite expensive. I said, okay, let's start from the basic. Give me from JSS1. Let me read. And I picked up the book. The book they were criticizing, that it does not contain Igbo history, even has some mentions of Igbo history in it. This one that I picked up, in the cover alone, has nothing at all of Ndi Igbo, except the photographs of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and the former head of state, Umunnakwe, Aguiyi, Thompson, Ironsi. These were the only 2 people that are on the cover page of the book. And it is inevitable because they were among the first set of rulers of Nigeria. The particular book that I picked up is still here in my house. I'm going to review the book after I have carefully read through to ascertain that truly the history of Igbo people was excluded from it. I saw artifacts that were used in the cover. Not one single Igbo artifact. I saw the knock art. I saw the terracotta art. I saw Ife art. I saw Bini bronzes. All these artworks are not in any way compared to Ibuku artworks. In fact, the Ibuku artworks date 9th century, older than any artwork in this sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm saying by archaeological testing. Nothing proves history more than archaeology. These things have been archaeologically tested. They have been documented by the National Council for Museums and Monuments in Nigeria. Yet, Nigeria's Historical Society of Nigeria, could not include any of these over 160 something artifacts discovered by Isaiah Nozie in Ibuku in the book. Not one. And then something very striking, because I was just flipping through the book. I saw Nsibidi, the ancient writing system of Ndi Igbo, documented as a cultural writing heritage of the Ibibio people. And I shook my head. How has Ndi Igbo in any way offended the Republic of Nigeria? Ibuku arts were ignored despite their description as the most meticulously designed artifacts in the world. Very, very carefully detailed. Imagine wrapping a rope round a vase, and it is represented in art so meticulously in the 9th century. That is how beautiful the Ibuku art is. When Ibuku art came out, they brought out so many talks. They said, maybe it was brought here by the Europeans. What? The artworks were dated 9th century. By 9th century, we don't know anything called Europeans, not even the Portuguese. We haven't had anything called European contact as at that time. So that ruled out that it came from Europe. It's okay. Maybe it was brought in by traders from Egypt. What? Most of the artifacts bore Ichi marks on their faces. And these are marks that you know Ndi Igbo with. One carried Ngwa Gerega, one of our staffs, traditional staffs that they use, our priests make use of. Some of the arts had Igbo beads on them. These artifacts are undeniably Igbo. The fact that they are removed from the books that are recommended for schools in Nigeria is a shame. And the fact that these books were censored and recommended by National Education Regulatory and Development Council of Nigeria, NERDC, and Historical Society of Nigeria made me shake my head. Because all the people who head these parastatals are professors of history, even if they are not of Igbo extraction. The closest person I saw is Professor Udoka, and he's from Akwa Ibom State. He's an Ibibio man. That immediately gave me the reason why Nsibidi was classified to belong to Ibibio people and not the Igbo people. Ndi Igbo, no matter how much you try, I don't need to explain this proverb. What makes Ndi Igbo great and resilient is within them. It is not outside them. You can't be killing the symptoms and think you're killing the person. It is not possible. The greatness of Ndi Igbo lies within them, not outside them. So, if the things that were created and forged by Ndi Igbo, I was reading through the book, I saw where they mentioned the Ibuku art. Oh, you knew there was something called the Ibuku art. And when creating the cover page of the book, you could not pick one single Ibuku art and put in the back cover. But you had numerous Bini bronze acts. It is not a coincidence. It is not a mistake. It is deliberate. And it is JSS 1. From JSS 1, a Nigerian student from Delta State is taught that Ndi Igbo should be undermined. They have no history. People use it to taunt us on social media. Now you see them saying, hey, Igbo people, you don't have history. Is it not Ajayi Crowder that gave you your language? Or is it not, what's his name, Ajayi Crowder? I would just laugh. That the word Igbo is I before others, IBO, or I go before others, IGBO. I look at these things and I laugh. The name Ibuku is the name of a community that is over 1,000 years old. In my own hometown, we have places called Obibo. The name Igbo was not given to us. Igbo, IGBO. If it is spelled IBO, EBO, HEEBO, it does not change its meaning. I cannot force a European whose letters of the alphabet does not have GB to begin to have it. I am Igbo, but he spells my name as Igbo. It doesn't change me. It simply reveals his inadequacies, not mine. I cannot be defined by the mistakes of another person. We cannot be defined by the mistakes of the European missionaries and the colonizers. And if in this modern era, our history as a people is being misrepresented, and only young people like us are the ones crying on the internet, while the Ohanese and Igbo leadership just watch our videos and swipe it away, it is a shame. When I'm saying Ohanese and Igbo leadership, I'm not referring to distinguished Senator John Azotambata. What about the state leadership? What about the Ohanese chapter president in Delta State, in Edo State, in River State? What are they teaching your children about the history and cultural practices of Ndi Igbo in the books recommended to them? So my children will be learning about Kanuri people, but they know nothing about the Igbo people. So because we want to practice one Nigeria, my children should learn so much about the Yoruba people and fail to know about the Enuani people and the Eka people. It is a shame. I have not started reviewing the book. I'm going to tear it chapter by chapter. But I just had to point attention to it, bring our attention to it. Even the Minister for Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, has come out to say that the book Living History is not recommended to schools in the country. I said, okay, no problem. That's a good start. But I know that in the country where I live in, where I have lived in for over 3 decades now, there is no smoke without fire. That rumor came from a truth. In every rumor in this country, there is an there must be a state or a local government where that history book is used. A history book that misrepresents what Ndi Igbo stand for. So if children from primary 1, no, JSS 1, because the book is for junior secondary. If children from JSS 1 are taught to undermine the history, the contributions, the sacrifices of Ndi Igbo to the historical development of Nigeria, by the age of 50, what will such child have to say about Ndi Igbo when his perceptions and ideas have been forged and formed by a faulted education system that fails to sit down and plan its curriculum? What makes Ndi Igbo great and resilient is not superficial. It is in our DNA. All right? It is in our DNA. It is in our DNA to wake up very early and know. It is in our DNA to know as well. It is in our DNA to know. Therefore, we use it to advise ourselves to utilize our resources judiciously. It is in our DNA and our wisdom as a people, because it took years for our ancestors to come to a conclusion about a particular saying, and then they use it to pass wisdom to us. It is in our DNA to be on the move, then day breaks. Not to be on the bed and day breaks. It is in our DNA to strive for excellence, even when people are saying you are doing well, to do better than that doing well. That is the Igbo man's DNA. That cannot be taken away from us. That one is genetic. You may think it is not genetic. It is because it's nurture against nature. You will say it's not genetic. It's something you can learn. It's an attitude you have to imbibe. If it is in your DNA to be lazy and weak, you will be lazy. Somebody was trying to, this is a deviation, but it's necessary. Somebody was trying to criticize the son of His Excellency Peter Obi, that why the son of Peter Obi, who claims to love Nigeria, is somewhere living his life, enjoying himself abroad, that the son of the incumbent president, Sheyi Tinubu, is going around trying to mobilize support for his father. I just shook my head at ignorance. Most people don't know what Ndi Igbo represent at all. An Igbo man is an Igbo man. He is independent. An Igbo man has his own mind. He thinks his own way and he does his own way. He is not his father's puppet. He wants to carve his own path. I can give examples upon examples upon examples. Let me give you a very striking example. Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu is a son of one of the wealthiest men in his time. His father was not a millionaire. He was a billionaire. His father's Rolls Royce was what was used to welcome Queen Elizabeth when she visited Nigeria. Louis Ojukwu was a very wealthy man. He even had an MBE. He was a knight in Britain. His son chose not to follow that path, but to go and fight for his people. That is Ojukwu. Chukwuemeka took a different path from his father's path. His father did not rebel. His father even died before the age of 60. He continued his life. Similarly, the son of the current governor of Anambra State, even when the father declared that the Onitsha market should be shut down, he came to his social media handle and condemned what the father said. People hate Ozonna for nothing. He has his own independent mind. That is an Igbo man for you. I have not seen the son of an Igbo governor trying to do office of the son of the governor. What is in other states? Even in my own state. You see the son of the governor or the daughter of a governor trying to form a clique of power brokers, trying to dictate or decide what happens in the state. You don't find it in all these Igbo states. Because the sons and daughters of those governors are Igbo people, they are trying to forge their own path. That is an Igbo man. So what makes an Igbo man resilient or great is inside their DNA. It's not something you can learn. Otherwise now, you can sit down as the son of the governor. People will be consulting you. Baba, I beg, help me talk to your papa now. I would like go for council chairmanship. You will now hold that as an office. I have not seen the son of Francis Nwifuru doing so. I don't know if they are old enough. I've only recently seen the son of David Umahi trying to contest council chairmanship years after his father left as governor. I have not seen the son of Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodimma. If you think Hope Uzodimma is a new money because you are seeing him with a young wife, go back in history and listen to the songs of Oliver the Cook. Oliver the Cook was praising Hope Uzodimma, calling him Ndi Bala Ogaranya na Nwa. Oliver the Cook had songs where he was praising Hope Uzodimma na akpọ ya Ndi Bala Ogaranya na Nwa. He did not become a rich man today. Where is the son of Odro Zokalo contesting for governor? Ndi Igbo have independent mindsets. They forge their own path. The son of a nobody can decide to become somebody in the government sector. The son of a governor can decide, Papa, I don't want anything with you and your political lies. I want to forge my own path. That is Ndi Igbo for you. So what makes Ndi Igbo great is not what you see outside. It is in their DNA. It is in the blood. That an Igbo man excels where others are struggling. It is in his DNA. While you lie down and roll on the floor to talk to your God, an Igbo man chooses to sit down and discuss with his father because he has understanding. Ihe ndị eji wee malụkwa ndị Igbo ka m na-akọwalụ gị ife a. Ihe ndị eji wee malụ ndị Igbo, it is in their blood, it is in their lifestyle. An Igbo man understands nature, goes with it and doesn't offend nature. Therefore, nature favors him. Even when you are fighting against him, an Igbo man ga-agwa Ofo Kenjikoniyo. We have names like Ofo Kansi, Ofo Edu. You tell you that no Ofo Kenjini. That Ofo is that he has not done you any bad. If you are doing him bad, the bad that you're planning, the evil that you're fomenting will return to you. That is one of the principles of the lifestyles of an Igbo man. So Igbo that has made them very resilient and prosperous is inside them. It is not outside them. If you are trying to see, let me oppress them and see if I can find it out, you will not find it. The shop of an Igbo man may catch fire this year. It will burn down. 3 years later, he bounces back. And they say, oh, he just renewed his juju. Go and burn your own and renew your juju. Let's see how it will go. There's no juju that is being renewed. It is a man who knows that there is eventualities in life. It is also a man who is a part of a supporting system. Because we have a supporting system. I just finished creating a video about traditional marriages. In my hometown, if I come of age to get married, there is a group that will contribute drinks to support my marriage because my father has also contributed drinks in my name to support the marriage of other people. And the greeting of the group is very, very funny, but very instructive. We say, Ogodino yeno no, ordinary ilo. When you have prestige and pride at home, when you are honored at home, you will be honored outside. So we believe respect, prestige should begin from home, not outside. So what makes Ndi Igbo marvelous, what makes Ndi Igbo envied is in them, not outside them. What you will do and fail, an Igbo man may try it and succeed, and you will start asking questions. There's a divine connection to an Igbo man. So when we deprive our children of knowing who they are by virtue of allowing them to study their history thoroughly, we begin to have problem. Because the greatest thing you can take from a man is not wealth, is not money. The greatest thing you can deprive a man of is the man's identity. No matter how you treat a man, the day he realizes who he is, he says, no, I cannot take this any further. The day that prodigal son described in the Bible realized, oh, I used to eat very well in my father's house. I must go back to my father's house. Even if he chases me away, I must go back. Let our Igbo sons and daughters who are in this generation, the young people, the youths, let them be told. Let my children who are in JSS1 be taught that their ancestors, as at 9th century, were making artworks. That their ancestors have the oldest iron smelting site in the world. And iron, as at then, is like gold is now. They were already smelting iron and they were not making weapons with it. They were not fighting wars. There's no community you get to and they'll tell you, we used to speak a certain language called fru, and then Igbo people conquered us and imposed Igbo language on us. No. Anywhere you see people speaking Igbo, they will tell you they are autochthonous here, or they came here. Nowhere at all that was conquered by Ndi Igbo and language was imposed on them. We were not fighting wars. The only war you will ever hear Ndi Igbo fought is to defend themselves. Ayekumeku was a defense, not an attack. These people were oppressing us, man. Replaced our religious system. Were forcing us to do labor without pay until our ancestors said no, enough. And we resisted them for 32 years. The longest anti-colonial resistance struggle in the history of mankind, Ekumeku resistance, fought by the Igbo people of Western Niger. Remember till tomorrow and gazetted by the British Nigerian government. One of the reasons why they said, if you see Ndi Igbo, don't allow them to enter or occupy any office of note. I want to thank every single person who has been a part of this live stream. I'm going to end the video. I know a lot of you must have been waiting for me to say, if you're watching the video double tap, I've stopped saying all that. If you find this video interesting, you feel the knowledge is worth sharing, please share it. You can also like the video to help it come up on the algorithm. It is all on you. Mine is to create content and awareness about the proud historical, cultural heritage of the Igbo people. It is up to you to support me in sharing the message. I will see you in my next videos. Please, until then, continue to wear your Igbo identity like a crown, not like a costume. Wear your Igbo identity proudly. Wedribe Igbo Igbo zawe maka na Igbo bụ enyi. Onye abụ na onye Igbo n'ọkwa. Our ancestors were the first to use stone tools, first to use metal tools, first to make those artifacts that they are parading everywhere. First in everything, we will never last. If our children are told this knowledge, they will never lower the bar. Daalụ ni ka ọ dị n'oge ọzọ. Chukwu ya gọzie unu ka unu si agbanye n'anyị na ihe n'aka na akwado na anọghị n'anyị n'ụlọ n'Igbo Enuani Cultural Forum ka ọ dịkwa n'oge ọzọ. Daalụ ni.